Alrighty then. This is going to be what if Deku was framed? Yes, I know. Uh, if you're watching this, most likely it'll be next month. But if you're seeing this in October, then I don't know. Maybe I just didn't want to upload or didn't want to try to record something and just uploaded this. But I'm making this pretty early. This will be what if Deku was framed, and I'm going to do a few things. We are going to be starting when he's a child, but it's not going to be there for too long. I'm just going to explain a few stuff. So, Deku was born, alright. His dad is quirkless, just like him, and he, owns a business, a pretty, well, we'll talk about that business later. It's going to be important later, but, his dad is quirkless, and he still works in America. He works in a certain city. We'll talk about that city later. And Deku also has, adoptive brothers, and he also has a half-brother. He has about, I think, three adoptive brothers and one half-brother. And, that's Deku's, family. So he has his dad, but, Deku's dad basically knows that if Deku is called what his last name is in public, then he'll be hunted. So, Deku basically takes on his mom's last name, Midoriya, because for this one, her last name is Midoriya. And, Inko, she lives in an averagely nice house. She didn't want anything too amazing because she didn't want to spoil Deku. But, basically, when Deku finds out he's quirkless, something in him breaks that day, He's not the same. Like, he acts different. Like, he's more, like, hard. Like, how do I say this? Like, Deku won't take shit. And, basically, Deku has been starting to show signs of a troublemaker. So, basically, Inko realizes that Deku is broken because of this. And so does Deku's, dad. He figured it out even though he was in America after talking to Deku for a little while. So they send Deku to therapy. Deku, he goes back to his usual ways, basically. But, the other Deku, he's there. He's not gone. He's never gone. But, basically, Deku's dad is like, we'll start training you, because, he's quirkless. So Deku, he does training, he's stronger, he knows, pretty good martial arts, stuff like that. But everything other than that goes the same in canon, stuff like that. And then, this will be after the USJ. So, a little bit after the USJ, Deku, he's heading towards class, right? And we'll say they introduced the dorms a bit earlier. After the USJ, they immediately introduced the dorms. Because they were not trying to, mess up. So basically, Deku, he goes to the dorms. He's ready to get inside. And then he gets slapped by, his girlfriend, Uraraka. He's like, what the hell? He's like, what the hell? Why do you hit me? Basically, she's like, I can't believe you're a villain, blah, 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 Deku confused now because, Uraraka, his girlfriend, is calling him a villain. And, Deku's like, what are you talking about? And, he's trying to get her to explain and stop her from crying, basically, because he doesn't like to see her cry. So, Deku's still nice. So he's like, what are you doing, Uraraka? What's wrong? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, get away from me, you villain. And then everybody hears this, and they all rush into the common room. Deku's like, guys, I don't know what's going on with Uraraka. She keeps calling me a villain. And blah, 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 blah. And then, basically, Sero wraps, some tape around Deku. And Deku's like, what the hell? And, basically, Sugar Rush guy, he doesn't do anything, actually. Who do I want? Ayama shoots him with a laser out of his belly button. Deku gets sent. He's sent to, the other side of, the room. And basically, Deku's like, what the hell? He's like, what are you guys doing? Stuff like that. And then, All Might walks in there. He's like, I can't believe, I trusted you, blah, 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 Basically stuff like that. All Might, he just takes back the quirk immediately, just like that. Deku's like, what's going on? Can someone explain this to me? And then, basically, Nezu walks in. He's like, Izuku Midoriya, we have figured out that, you are the UA traitor, blah, 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 blah. And Deku, he's beyond confused, because, they don't even know about the UA traitor yet. He's like, what do you mean the UA traitor? What's going on? Nezu explains that they have video evidence of Deku, stealing files. A few people are they heard that Deku was a villain, but they didn't know why. So they're like, Deku, like, a few people are like, Deku wouldn't do that. He doesn't really, they're basically like trying to talk to Nezu, like, no, he wouldn't do that. Deku's not that kind of person. And Uraka, she's mad. She's like, well, I can't believe, I loved you, blah, 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 blah. Deku, he's hurt. Ida's like, I can't believe I trusted a villain and I befriended a villain, blah, 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 blah. And, Deku, he's hurt by this because, they're his friends. Like, they're supposed to be his friends. So, Deku's like, wait, like, come on. Like, can't we talk about this for a second? Like, get my dad on the phone. Like, he'll be able to explain where I was and stuff like that. He'll be able to, like, get this all sorted out. And they don't even listen. They just send him straight to jail. They don't even send him to, a court or anything like that. Which, that's going to be important later. So then, they call Inko. They tell her what happened. Inko's like, are you guys idiots or something? Blah, 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 blah. You sent him straight to jail. You didn't even tell me. Blah, 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 And then she's like, all right, I'm going to call his father about this. And now they're confused because, like, who's this important father of Deku's, So she calls up Deku's dad. He's like, hello, honey, what's going on? She explains the situation, and Deku's dad, he's beyond pissed. He's like, hey, get me, like, a plane to Japan right now at your top speeds, like, right? He's like, sir, are you sure? Like, like, are you sure about this? Like, he's like, yeah, they sent Izuku to jail for something he didn't do. The butler, he knows Izuku, he loves Izuku. He's like, they did what? Because this butler is basically, Deku's, like, grandfather, practically. So he's like, oh, I'm heading with you. Like, he's like, no, someone has to watch the house. Deku's adoptive brother, he walks into the room. He's like, what's going on? He basically explains that, Izuku was sent to jail. And, Deku's adoptive brother, he's pissed. Like, it's the oldest one. So he's like, what the hell? Like, they sent Izuku to jail, blah, 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 blah. And basically, like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to Japan right now, So basically, like, Deku's adopted brother's like, take me, come on. Like, he's like, no, I need you to, watch out for this place for me. He's like, all right, fine then, He's like, fine, he just sits down. He's like, all right, let's focus on something else right now. So, the butler, he's like, fine, all right, whatever you say, master. Basically. And Deku's dad, he gets to Japan within a day, right? So Deku's dad, like, storms into UA. He's allowed into UA, basically. And, they're wondering, like, why is, this man visiting us? And he busts in the room. He's like, Nezu, what the hell do you think you're doing sending my son to, prison? And then Nezu's confused. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, you sent Izuku Midoriya to jail, did you not? And then Nezu's confused now because, like, he's like, your son, basically. And, Nezu's like, well, we had overwhelming evidence, blah, 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 blah. He's like, what evidence? Basically, like, they show him a video of, Deku stealing files. This guy, he's like, he has his fingers, like, on, like, the tip of his nose and stuff. Like, not the tip, but, like, what's it called? Between your eyes, basically. He has his hand like that, and he's like, are you idiots or something? They look at him funny. They're like, you don't think in a world of quirks that people, can magically transform into other people? Like, Nezu basically, it clicks in Nezu's head what he's trying to say. But, like, he's like, well, I mean, we don't have any proof that it could be anyone like that, blah, 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 blah. Basically, he's like, all right, then, until I'm able to get my son back, I'm removing all funding from UA. They're like, all funding from UA? Like, all your funding that you're giving us? Like, yes. All my side branches, all my main branches that are are funding UA are being removed immediately. Nezu's like, are you sure about this? Like, he's like, yes, I am positive. Because if you want to send my son falsely, then, he's basically, like, cursing the hell out of Nezu. He knew about All Might, like, teaching Deku and stuff. So he's like, and especially you. And, he points at All Might. And All Might's like, what do you mean? He's like, I know that you were teaching my son. I know that you were mentoring him. And you didn't even trust him. I'm beyond pissed at you. So he, like, curses out All Might. And, he walks out. And All Might's surprised because, he cursed out All Might. Because All Might's the #1 hero in Japan, at least. So, like, basically, like, Deku's dad, he walks out of there. He head towards Inko's house. Inko's crying. He's like, don't worry, baby. I'll get this done all, like, real quick. And, basically, while this is happening, a certain vigilante, he not vigilante, but a certain hero. He's visited Japan, and he's starting to he's like he's studying on what's going on basically, and he realizes that Izuku is in trouble, so he's like, God damn that kid. So he basically starts researching in on what's going on because he wondered why this business owner flew all the way to Japan since he knows this guy personally. He's like, why did he fly all the way to Japan? Was it to meet his son or something? Was it to meet Izuku? And then he finds out what happened. Basically, he was listening in on the whole conversation. And, Izuku's dad, he knew that he was there, but he didn't care enough to even explain it. He's just beyond pissed at the school. And Aizawa didn't believe that Deku did it for a second because he knew Deku. So basically class 1A, they're talking who thinks that Deku is a traitor and who doesn't. Bakugo's like, I can't believe I ever grew up with a traitor like that. Blah 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 blah. Kirishima doesn't believe it. Momo doesn't believe it. Jiro doesn't believe it. Kaminari doesn't believe it. Tokiyami doesn't believe it. Ojiro doesn't believe it. Some people just don't believe it, and they'll basically, be talking to. But there are some people who do believe it, Uraka believes it, Ida believes it, Sue doesn't believe it. Those people. Basically, what? So Deku, we'll go back to Deku's perspective. So Deku, he's thrown in jail, and basically Deku is breaking down at this point. He's like, it's all happening again. Everything's happening all over again. My power, I didn't, they took the power away. All Might took the power away. I'm being betrayed, people are telling me stuff that I don't want to hear, I'm the villain or something. He's basically falling back into that old personality that he had before, that he, buried deep within himself. So he's like, well, he just, gives up. He's like, alright, if they want to think of me as a villain, it doesn't even matter. Once I get out of here, once Dad gets me out, I'll just see what I do from there. Because he's beyond this. So he just does training. He does, intensive training. It's crazy. So, he'll come out to eat meals. He'll go to the yard. He'll do training. This goes on for about a month. And Deku, he's swole now. He's swole. And he's done combat training, He's been in gang fights and stuff like that. Because, you're in jail, so you gotta do something if you want protection. So he's in gang fights and stuff. And, he's gotten, a few scars and stuff, but nothing serious. Basically, at that point, the Deku's father had enough evidence to prove that Deku was innocent and that it was Himiko Toga. And, Deku doesn't really care because, Himiko Toga, he doesn't really care about her at all. He isn't angry with her because he realized, she was just doing what she was doing as her job and stuff like that, What's it called? So he doesn't really care about her. He's not gonna be on, this whole revenge trip or anything like that. But he's just slightly annoyed by her, I guess. Deku, he basically, he gets a visit from his dad. He gets a visit from his dad, every week. So it's the 4th week now, and Deku gets a visit. He's like, yo, what's up, Dad? He's like, you get bigger every time I see you. And here, he's like, yeah, this place changes you up a bit, I guess. He's like, yeah, tell me about it, Deku's like, so, do you have enough evidence yet? And he's like, yeah, I have enough evidence. You should be out by, next week. And Deku's like, alright, I can get all my bearings together before then. Deku's daddy's like, alright, sure. And by the way, he's like, what is it? I'll be training you personally for the next month before you even go back to school. And Deku's like, alright, sure. And then he's like, also, one more thing, Dad. His dad, looks back. He's like, can I take your last name now? Because I'm really tired of just being Izuku Midoriya. And he's like, alright. I mean, what's it called? I'll be training you, so it'll be fine. So Deku's like, alright, that's good. So he cracks his knuckles, He's like, well, I got a few more heads to bash in. I'll see you later. Deku's dad laughs a bit. He's like, have fun. So Deku, he goes back. He's in his cell now, and he's chilling out. And while that's all happening, this other guy, he has enough evidence to get Deku out, right now. So he gives it to Deku's dad, and he's like, oh, so you work here to check on Izuku. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever, old man. So, this guy basically well, that's all the information that you needed, now I'm leaving. He's like, you don't want to see him before he gets out? He's changed a lot. He's a lot more like you now. And he's like, oh, really, no? I highly doubt it. He's like, you'd be surprised. Because, last time he saw Izuku was a sweet boy. But, Deku, he fell back into the old personality. And, Deku's dad knows this, but, he realizes that Izuku's not going to go back to the kind-hearted Izuku. Not anytime soon at all. So basically, like, now Nezu's given all the information, and Nezu's like, well, with a most certain amount, Deku is not the UA trader, and he's being sent back as they speak. Deku is not gonna have a quirk in this, so don't even think that way. But something else is gonna happen. So basically, Deku, he's been training, he's been working, and then they basically tell him, like, it's your time to leave, and Deku gets up, he cracks his neck, he's like, oh, finally, I've been in here way too long. So he walks out, basically. He walks out, he sees his dad, he's like, yo, I'm finally out, I'm out of the slam, he's joking with his dad, so he's like, so what are we doing first, He's like, first, you're coming back to the city with me because everyone was worried about you. Like, what about mom, she's in the city too, and Deku, he's surprised about that. Is she gonna be staying in the city? And Deku's dad is like, yeah, but I'll be giving you my mansion in here, and you'll be staying here. He's like, alright, sure enough. Do I still, get the basement, basically? Deku's dad laughs a little bit. It's not a basement, But Deku, he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's under the house, and it's big and creepy. It's a basement. So, Deku, he walks, into the plane. They head towards, the city. And Deku's dad, he's like, alright then, it's time for us to suit up and head out. So, Deku suits up with his dad. They're doing some training, basically. It's intense training. So Deku, he's getting really good really fast. Like, faster than, even Deku's dad, which is surprising Deku's dad. So, he's like, wow, kid, you're a prodigy at work here. And Deku's like, yeah, sure, whatever, come on, old man. Like, what, are you getting tired on me already? And Deku's dad, he laughs. He's like, oh, so it's like that now. He's like, whatever you say. And then Deku, he's like, so, one more thing. And Deku's dad, he stops for a second. He's like, what is it? Well, the girl that I liked basically betrayed me, so... He's like, so wait, does that mean... Deku's like, yes, it does. And Deku's dad, he's like, yes! Oh, you're the best. Like, he's like, you're the best ever, Izuku, you know that? And Deku's like, yeah, whatever. So, basically, Deku's dad calls up, a residence. And then he's like, and they're like, oh, hello there, sir, what's going on? I'm here to talk to Mrs. Yayorozu. And, Mrs. Yayorozu, she gets the phone. She's like, oh, my old friend, He's like, how are you doing? He's like, I'm doing great. But you remember what I told you about, the arranged marriage being off, And, Deku's sighing in the background. He's like, god damn it. Like, cause, like, he doesn't know who it is. But, what's it called? So he's, like, in the other room. He's like, oh, who the hell is this gonna be anyways? So, Deku, he's chilling out. And he's chilling out. He's cracking his neck. He's like, alright then, so who is the lucky lady? Basically, who's the lucky lady? And he's like, a girl by the name of Momo Yayorozu. Deku stops for a second. He's like, wait. Did I hear you right? He's like, yeah, Momo Yayorozu. And then Deku looks at him funny. He's like, it just had to be a classmate, didn't it? He's like, yeah, I thought you two should get to know each other. Deku was annoyed at this point because, the Yayorozus were like, we'll say they're, one of their main rivals. And to have them, basically merging with the Yayorozus is like a huge thing. So it's all over the news that, the person who, owns the Wayne residence, the next, like, owner of the Japanese branch of the Wayne residence is going to be marrying, Momo Yayorozu. So, everyone thinks that it's Deku's half-brother, but Deku's half-brother is not at all involved with Deku's company, or Deku's father's company. So, basically, Deku, he's like, alright, we've been training for a month now, I should probably head back. So Deku heads back, he's like, well, I'm gonna be, I'll be finally able to drive, because he didn't drive before, but he got his license in America, because, that's where Deku was. So he's like, alright, don't go too crazy now. Deku, he's like, yeah, sure, whatever you say, old man. And, he leaves. Inko, she's happy because she gets to stay with her husband, but she's also a bit worried for Deku. She's like, but, he's quirkless and stuff like that. He's like, don't worry about him. He'll do just fine out there. Basically, Deku, he gets to Japan. He sees that, only a few people are there to visit him. Like, Mitsuki's there because, her friend basically left and her son now is going to be staying. And, like, a few other people, like some of Class 1A. Momo's there. What's it called? I said Jiro believed him, right? So Jiro's there. Todoroki's there because I'll just say that Todoroki really had nothing better to do. And he didn't really believe that Deku was a traitor, even though he hasn't gotten that your power yet talk. But, a few of Deku's friends there, he's like, yo. Everybody's surprised how, like, Deku's talking. He's like, yo, how are you guys doing? They're like, oh, you're not at all angry with us or anything. He's like, no, you guys came to visit, so that means that, at one point you either believed me or you guys have, already forgotten about that. Which means, like, Deku's like, I'm not really mad at too many people, I'm only mad at a few. Mitsuki's like, is Bakugo one of them, Deku's like, sadly, Aunt Mitsuki, yeah, he is. And she's like, alright, well, it's fine, I understand, basically. Stuff like that. Deku's like, oh, by the way, while I was in prison, I lost my quirk. And, everybody's like, oh my god, blah, 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 I'm sorry. Like, they're like, what the hell happened? He's like, yeah, just some stuff happened. My quirk disappeared, blah, blah, blah. He just explains it like that. He's like, don't worry, though, I'll be fine. Basically, like, Izuku, he goes to class the next day. So he's in class right now. He's like, yo, what's up, everybody? He's like, everybody, like, a few people are surprised because they didn't know Deku was coming back. So they get ready to attack, and then Aizawa's like, hold up. Deku was proven to not be the UA traitor. He's like, yeah, what's up, guys? They're a bit surprised that Deku was so chill. Like, so he's like, yeah, I'll be staying here. He also is like, while I'm at it, I might as well tell you guys I lost my quirk. And then they're like, what? How'd you lose your quirk? Stuff like that. Deku explains some stuff happened. And, he just lost his quirk. He doesn't really want to get into it. That's what he says. And basically, like, Aizawa was surprised because he was expecting, Deku to go back for All Might's quirk. And All Might was, gonna try to give Deku back his quirk. So, that interaction will be fun. But, then Uraraka, she gets up. She's like, Izuku, she runs at him. Deku sidesteps her. He's like, so how are you guys doing, And she runs into the board. Everybody's surprised that Deku just completely ignored her. Ida's like, that's very rude to ignore your classmates. Deku's like, it's very rude to, think that your friend is a criminal and not believe him. Ida shuts up real quick. And, Uraraka gets her face out of the wall. She's like, I'm sorry, Izuku, blah, 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 I'm sorry, Deku. He's like, yeah, don't call me Izuku. We're not on first name basis. She's like, wait, so you don't even want me to call you Deku? She's like, no. Call me my last name. And, she's like, alright, Midoriya, I guess. At least she's sad to say that. He's like, oh, I almost forgot to tell you guys. It's time for me to reveal my lineage. Like, he basically, like, slams his hand on the table. They're like, what the hell? He's like, by the way, my name isn't, Izuku Midoriya. And Bakugo's confused. He's like, what do you mean your name isn't Izuku Midoriya? Deku's like, well, Midoriya was my mom's last name. My real last name is Wayne, And, like, they're confused. Momo gets up real quick. She's like, Wayne? He's like, yeah, what about it? She's like, so you're, what's it called? Wayne as in, like, he's like, yeah, Wayne Industries, or, like, Wayne Incorporations. Whatever they call, Wayne Industries or something. Basically, it's not not Stark Industries, it's like Wayne Tech. He's like, yeah, I'm next in line for Wayne Tech, And, they're all surprised because everyone knows what Wayne Tech is. Wayne Tech is the #1 support core, like, the #1 support hero items, the #1 hero agency, #1 everything, basically. Like, they're #1 in tech, hero agency, what's it called, support items, Basically, because they have Batman, of course, and you know who Deku's dad is. It's Batman. The guy who visited, like, to make sure Deku was okay, that was Red Hood, alright? The oldest who was worried, that was freaking Dick Grayson, otherwise known as Nightwing. And the butler, we can't forget the butler, he is Alfred, alright? You all know, this is what I'm doing. I'm not giving Deku powers, because when you're son of Batman, you don't need powers. So they're like, wait, so you're the son of Bruce Wayne? Basically everybody's surprised. Ida's surprised. Uraraka's surprised, because, like, she was basically, like, at that point, they were dating at one point, but, that was over. So she was, like, at one point, she was dating, like, the richest kid in the world. So, Uraraka, she's seeing money signs, basically. Ida, he's surprised. He's like, wait, you're the son of, like, Wayne's? And he's like, yeah. So it was kind of dumb for you guys to think that, I would support villains, even though my dad is literally the #1 hero supporter. But, he did remove funding from UA, so it's fine. Basically, like, a little bit of payback, I guess you could say. They're all surprised about this, and then, basically, like, everyone, like, realizes something about, Momo having to marry the next in line. So, Deku walks up to Momo, he's like, well, I guess we're engaged. He says this out loud, and everybody's like, engaged? Because, like, they didn't really know too much about it, because you have to be, like, in business. Momo's like, yeah, I guess so. He's like, well, I think that, at first I was a bit worried, but I don't think this will be too bad. He just goes and sits down. Now Momo's red, because he complimented her, basically. And Uraraka's like, what do you mean engaged? And he's like, oh, yeah, I also gotta explain this. What's it called? I have an arranged marriage with young, Miss Yaoyorozu over there. Well, I guess Miss Wayne now. She goes, like, red. Like, at this point, steam's coming out of her ears because, thinking about being Miss Wayne. Like, like, look at this Deku. This is what Deku looks like. He's also, like, looks different. He's chiseled now. So, basically, like, Aizawa was like, alright, so to make sure that, Izuku's not going to be in any sort of danger, like, trying to be a hero, basically, we're going to have, first we're going to test, like, his combat prowess against you guys with no quirks, and then we're going to test his combat prowess with you guys without a quirk. And Deku immediately starts smiling, because he's like, oh, this is going to be fun. He's cracking his knuckles, and everyone's surprised about this, because, normal Deku would have been scared out of his mind, and, basically, like, Bakugo walks up to him, he's like, what happened to you, you shitty nerd? He's like, oh, yeah? Like, he's like, well, you see, when I was pronounced quirkless when I was younger, I broke inside at one point, and, my personality changed deeply from there. Then I was sent to therapy that helped fix my old personality. That's that's the facade of an Izuku, he's like, this is the real me, to be honest. I never really showed you guys, because, I had no reason to. As I was surprised about this, because that means, like, basically Deku was broken. So now, like, before Deku even, like, is able to, like, he's called to the front office, he's like, oh, I got some, he like, smiles, he's like, well, I got something to do real quick, everybody's like, what do you mean? He's like, I'll meet you guys out to, the training field, you guys go have fun, Deku, basically, he's like, so Deku, he heads towards the, front office. Nezu is there, All Might's there, a few, heroes are there. They're like, yeah, we're sorry, blah, 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 blah. Deku's like, yeah, whatever, sure. Like, he scoffs at him, and, they're a bit surprised, because, Deku's acting different. All Might's like, young Midoriya, he plucks out a hair, he's like, please take my quirk back, and, Deku, he takes the hair, and, let's say, like, there's a fireplace in there, so Deku basically walks up, and he just throws it in the fire, he's like, well, that's fun, he walks out, All Might's like, Midoriya, like, don't you want the quirk? Because, like, that won't destroy One For All or anything. It'll just, like, basically just go back to All Might after that, let's say. Basically, like, he's like, Midoriya, don't you want the quirk? Deku's like, no, I don't want your damn quirk, And he's like, what do you mean, And then Deku explains that, if you didn't trust me enough before, and you think that I'm going to take back your quirk now, you're funny, old man, basically. Everybody's surprised because, like, he has no respect for All Might. He's like, I respected you at one point to where your words actually hurt me, to when you said I couldn't be a hero quirkless. And then now I've realized something. You're not shit, you know? He's like, you ain't shit, alright? I know people who could bench press, like, who could bench press your fucking life, like, you know, and still would not give a fuck, alright? And he's like, what do you mean by that? I know fucking aliens, and I know fucking Batman. I don't give a shit about you. And he walks out the room, and everyone's surprised, because, you know, Deku just disrespected All Might. And All Might's like, what the hell, you know? He's confused. You know, he's like, oh yeah, Zuko is actually not a Midoriya. He's a Wayne. You know, All Might's surprised, because, you know, he knows about the Waynes. Everybody knows about the fucking Waynes. So Deku, like, you know, he goes to the changing room. Everyone's already outside. So he changes into, you know, the gym uniform. It barely fits him because it's his old one. So, like, it's very tight on him. So his muscles are basically, like, you know, bulging out of his fucking, you know, that's an awful word to say. But it's basically, like, showing out off of his gym uniform. You know, all the girls are jealous of Momo at this point because, you know, that's hers. So, you know, Deku's like, alright, so who am I fighting first, you know? He's stretching, and, you know, basically he's like, well, since you're already pretty physically fit, we'll have you go against Kirishima first, since he's the most naturally physically fit here, you know? Basically, Kirishima, he's like, alright, this will be a manly battle, stuff like that, because, you know, Kirishima's quirk has to do, basically, with him mainly fighting without it, like, you know, he fights, but he's hardened, so it's gonna be, like, basically a normal fight for Kirishima. You know, also a normal fight for Deku. So Deku, you know, Deku gets into a fighting stance. Kirishima gets into a fighting stance. You know, Kirishima runs for Deku, but like as Kirishima's running, he's like on the ground all of a sudden, and you know he's face first on the ground. And he's like, all right, so who's next? You know, everybody's like stunned because he took the shit. He like knocked the fuck out of Kirishima. So basically, he's like, so do you think that you can handle them with their quirks? He's like, yeah, I should be able to handle them with their quirks, you know. He's like, it won't be that difficult, you know. Bakugo's like, the fuck you say, nerd? So he's like, me next, you know. So now Deku, he's like, he does the little, like, the four-finger thing where he's like, come here, basically. You know, Bakugo's pissed, so he runs at Deku. Deku basically dodges an explosion. He spins Bakugo's arm around and then, like, elbows Bakugo in the back of the head, knocking him out. So, you know, it's basically like just like easy one punches. He's like, is that all you got? You know, come on, bring a few more at me. So basically, like after that, you know, Sero swings in, basically tries to kick Deku. Deku like grabs his foot and, you know, slams him on the ground. He's kicking the shit out of Class 1A. You know, by the time they're done, about all the guys are on the ground and, you know, the girls are like lightly knocked out. And it's just Deku versus Momo. So he's like, I'm not a wife beater. he like basically says that. So he's like, I forfeit. I'm not a wife beater. You know, Momo's like, so what? You're not taking me seriously? He's like, no, that's not it. You know, that's not it. So she's like, come on then. You know. So Deku's like, all right then. So he's like, never mind. So he gets into a fighting stance. You know. Basically, Momo's throwing jabs and stuff like that, and then, you know, she'll pull out a staff and start swinging with it. But Deku's critiquing her fighting style, so he's like, wait, you know, she stops. He basically, like, you know, moves her leg in a way that, you know, he's like, here, you know, like, do you feel, like, less pressure? And she's like, yeah, actually. And, you know, he's like, all right. And, you know, you should keep that elbow a little bit lower, basically. You know, he's just critiquing her fighting style a bit. And she's like, wait, is this training or is this, you know, a sparring match? He's like, well, I mean, sparring is training. So he's like, I'm just trying to help you out here. You know, she's like, fine. And then, you know, she starts, like, you know, swinging the staff. You know, Deku's dodging. He's like, you're doing pretty good, actually. You know, I am not going to lie. You've done better than my expectations. But, you know, he's like, but I'm actually very well trained in combat. So he basically, like, you know, he gets the staff. He pulls it out of her hands. He starts spinning it, and, you know, she's like, what, you think I can't make another one? He's like, no, but I think I can beat you in a staff battle. You know, basically, she makes another staff. You know, they're going at it, but, you know, Deku's, like, easily winning. He's like, you see, when I hit here, you need to start blocking here. Like, he's critiquing her. You know, she's annoyed at this point. So, basically, Deku trips her up, and then she's about to fall, and then, you know, he catches her. He's like, I'm really impressed with how you did that. Honestly, if I were anybody else, I probably would have lost that. I'll help you out with your training a bit more, you know, just to make sure that you can handle yourself in a fight, you know. She's like, what do you mean handle myself? He's like, it's not that you're weak or anything. It's just that you need certain things, like, that you don't have right now. until you gain those certain things, you'll still not be at your peak, basically. She's like, all right, then, so he helps her up. He's like, well, that was very fun. And then, so basically, he's like, do I have to take them all to the infirmary? And he's like, no, recovery girl will help them all out. So everybody's on the ground, like, groaning. Like, the guys especially, but, the girls are just knocked out. So he didn't hit the girls, basically, like, he didn't, like, even Uraraka, he doesn't hit women, like unless they're criminals. So, Deku, basically, he's like, well, Pai, I guess, like, am I going home now? He's like, yeah, sure. So he's like, wait, Momo, before I head out, he's like, how about a date? And she's like, but we're already engaged. He's like, yeah, well, I mean, I might as well get to know you better. I'm gonna be spending my life with you. She's like, she's like, you know what, fine, basically, that happens. So, Deku, he's like, alright, well, I'll see you later, but I thought, was like, wait, before you go, we'll be doing the, what's it called? What's the tournament thing called? I forgot, fuck. The sports festival, yeah. We'll be doing the sports festival in, like, about a week, or, like, about a month, let's say. So Deku's like, perfect, that'll give me the perfect amount of time to start training her. And, Mom was like, what do you mean by that? And, he's like, you think that we're not gonna be training for this month? So, she's like, oh no, because he's like, this is gonna be some brutal training. Like, we're gonna make sure that you can create stuff while you're fighting, you can keep the motion going, stuff like that. But, until then, like, look forward to our date, because, that'll be the nicest you'll see me for a little while. And, Deku, he's like, well, I'll be seeing you later, so he heads off. And, Momo basically gets ready for a date at home, and Deku, he's also getting ready. So, he goes, and, he's in the Lamborghini, because, you're the son of Bruce Wayne. You're not about to get caught lacking. What? You're not about to get caught lacking. Not anytime soon. So, he's in the Lambo. He's like, yo. And she's like, this is your car? He's like, Wayne, remember? And then it clicks in her head again, because, sometimes she forgets. So, Deku, basically, he's like, alright then, so where do you want to go? And then she's like, anywhere you really want to go, like, don't worry about it, He goes to a fancy restaurant that's, like, super expensive, and, they're eating, they're talking, so, basically Deku's talking to her, Momo's talking about, like, why she wanted to be a hero, Deku's talking, like, Deku, like, asked her a question, he's like, why does your outfit like that, And she's like, what do you mean? Deku's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it, alright, but I really wouldn't want people seeing, my wife in that. And she's like, well, like, she looks down, she's sad a bit. She's like, well, my quirk, requires me to show off a lot of skin in order to create, at, like, max potential. So basically, Deku's like, I see now, he basically like, I get it, alright. So, Deku basically, he's like, well, I could probably help you with that while we're training, She's like, what do you mean? He's like, I'll find a way, He's basically planning on calling up his dad about it. Because, he knows that his dad knows something. Whether it be useful or not, he knows something that he could do about it. So basically, Deku, he's like, yeah, I could probably call up my dad, see if they can make something in the support agency. But, Wayne's support items, they're expensive and, hard to make. So, like, because, like, they're supposed to be really good. And especially, like, in Momo's case, they'll basically have to start up a whole new project, which will cost them a lot. But she's like, no, you don't have to do that, My parents tried to find one, but, it was super expensive, so I just told him to stop. Deku basically, he's like, no, it's fine, like, at this point, like, they're on their way out while they're talking like that, so, Momo was planning on paying, Deku was like, he laughed, and then she's like, what is it? He's like, don't do that, and she's like, what? He's like, don't even think about paying. She's like, well, I mean, like, before I've paid, and then Deku looks at her funny, he's like, so you're telling me, like, on former dates that you paid? Basically, she's like, yeah, I mean, I was the richest before. Deku looks at her funny. He's like, even if I weren't richer than you, you're not paying for dinner, she's surprised about that because, most guys, just try for the money or for the body. But, Deku isn't trying to, marry her for her money, really. Because, like, yeah, sure, like, you know, they're doing this to join a company, but Deku's trying to see what she is like personally. You know, Deku doesn't really have a problem with her. She seems very nice, basically. So Deku, he's like, either way, I plan on, working with you on this, basically, and also, you're not paying while I'm around. Like, if I'm in a 50 feet vicinity of you, you're not paying for anything, alright? You know, she laughs a bit, but, basically, like, he's talking with her, and, she's like, you don't have to spend that much money on me, especially, like, to try to find a hero suit. So at this point, they're at Momo's house while they're talking about this. He picks up her chin. He's like, "Don't worry about that, sweetie." He basically he's like, "Don't worry about that, sweetheart." And he gives her a kiss on the cheek, and he's like, "Well, I think I'm gonna enjoy this." He leaves. Momo's right at this point. So she runs inside. She runs inside. She like goes to her mother. She talks about the date and how it went. And, Momo's mother is happy that she actually have found a good guy. Because she was worried about it, bro, the marriage and stuff like that. Cause since Momo didn't really want to do anything like that. But in the end, it all went for the best. Because Momo was originally, like, going to marry this other guy who was not good at all. He was a fatty. Basically, like, nothing wrong with fat people, but he was, like, a dickhead and stuff like that. Like, he was widely known for being one. It wasn't anything like, a fat person can't be awesome. I'm fat, alright? Alright, so don't come at me in the comments. I'm fat too. So Deku was just like, he's chilling at home. He talks to his dad about what he needs. His dad's like, well, that might take us a little while, but I think I'll have it done by the end of the month. And, Deku's like, I really appreciate it, Dad. And he's like, also, what about my suit that I've been, working up? And he's like, well, I mean, yeah, sure, but, he's like, an owl, really? He's like, because, like, he has bad memories with owls. He's like, yeah, I know, don't have the best reputation with owls, but I kind of like them. Like, he's like, I kind of like owls. So his dad, he's like, fine, owl man. Not really owl man. But, Deku's like, yeah, we're going to have to work on that name. So, basically, like, Deku, he's just been going to the, like, support course. He's also been helping out the support course because as like, the son of Wayne, he also has to learn about support items and stuff. So he's been, like, learning, and he's also became friends with May. And, he, like, basically, like, they're friends, so, like, she's about to, like, touch a wire, and he'll be like, no, you don't do that, you should do this, and, like, that'll make a bigger explosion, man. May's like, yes, and then, like, she'll touch the wire, and, like, the machine will work perfectly. She's like, no big explosion, but it worked perfectly, though, and then she's, like, annoyed now, but Deku doesn't care. He just doesn't want something to explode in his face. So, basically that's it. The sports festivals are about to start, and that's where I'll leave it off for now. Alright? I hope you guys have enjoyed. If not, then sorry. If you did, then good. Deku will not be getting a quirk at all. Like, at all. Alright, so at most, if I do give him a quirk, it'll be like something like, bat control. And even then, he won't use it that much. He'll mainly use it for intimidation or something. But I wouldn't even want to copy, like, a Lazy What If guy. What's it called? His name is Lazy Whatever, I think. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he had Deku have the power to control bats. It was someone who did a Batman What If. But, basically, like, if Deku did have a power, it'd be something to do with bats. Or actually, in this case, owls, since he's going to be, an owl instead of a bat. Even though, Batman explains that owls aren't the best because of, stuff that happened, the owls, basically. Night owl, or owl night, or whatever the hell you want to call them. Like, basically, like, the League of Owls or some shit. I don't know what they're called. But basically, Deku, he just... he's a Wayne. He will be running into some of the Bat family and some Bat villains, maybe. Maybe, I don't decide if Clayface or someone like that shows up. Who knows? Maybe even fucking, Superman might show up. I don't know. Basically, Deku, Deku's just enjoying life now because he is not only destined to marry a beautiful woman that he kind of has a crush on. He did have a crush on Momo. Nothing crazy, though. But either way, I'm rambling. So I'll end it here. Later. Alright, bye-bye.